Hello and good afternoon. I wanted to talk about magical symbols and the importance of symbols. And I was just listening to a psychiatrist or psychologist, and maybe he's really he's really knowledgeable, and he's on YouTube. His name is Richard Grennan, and he understands a lot about psychology, and he just had a talk about is the whole world becoming NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, and and he had some he had some good points for why you could use the diagnostical manual, the DSM, not just on an individual but on the whole species, which is very interesting. And but I used to listen to a lot of what he said, but I begin to have the impression that the more you know about psychology and psychiatry, the more you see that the most depressed people often are psychologists and psychiatrists, because basically, and that's my opinion, but I think that's true, what heals the patient of the psychiatrist or the psychologist, which you talk to for an hour a week or something like that, what heals the patient, what has an impact on the patient, is the compassion of the psychologist, not his knowledge about Jungian or Freudian psychology, not his knowledge about neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, not his voluminous knowledge about not his knowledge about psychology, Jungian, Freudian, whatever kind of psychology, NLP, his knowledge about NPD, and so, and this guy is basically really a self-taught specialist, and he has very interesting interviews with Sam Vaknin. And Sam Vaknin was a wunderkind, a prodigy in Tel Aviv, but he was worshipped by people because he had such a high IQ, and he went to university like Dougie Hauser, like when he was 13 years old or something like that. And that's what they used to do. And he said that basically he was a celebrity before celebrities were invented, and that massively damaged him. And he was abused at home. He came from an abusive household, and basically you get this split personality, because when you are out of the house, people are worshipping you. When you're in the house, you are basically slapped around and called a worthless piece of you know what, and so on. And that is then usually leads to either, so these are post-traumatic conditions, either NPD, which is a narcissistic personality disorder, or the opposite, which is sometimes called codependency, but it's also used in a different context, this word. So they also call it you become a people pleaser, and you are becoming a neurotic people pleaser. You cannot say no, and I think that's what happened to me, basically, because I have a hard time saying no, and I'm saying yes and amen to everything. And so why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because it's relevant to the Bible, because basically, as long as you don't realize that there is a God, you cannot be an individual. You cannot be an individual. You will be a product of your environment. And if this goes on for long enough, this mindset, this inner you is so rigid that you can't reprogram yourself. So maybe I found the Bible in the very last minute, and this happened often in my life, that at the very last minute I shrank away a second from death. That happened often in my life. And so yeah, and when I listen to a lot of Grannon's talks, and he used to mention one of his inspirations, which were many people, but he also used to mention Aleister Crowley. And so basically, if you are a worldly person, there will always be, like, whatever they call it, NPD, MPD, BPD, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, there will always be some issue. If you do not find this light, you will have a God. You have a God anyway, whatever it is. If it's money, the father that you are afraid of, or the overprotective mother, you will always, everyone has a God. It's not like you cannot not worship something. But by placing the focus on a symbol of redemption and of hope and of forgiveness, you're doing a very wise thing. And this is much more powerful than psychology can be. And like, I've met many psychologists over the last 20 years, and none of them had any answers. They didn't mostly not even have any questions that made any sense to me, you know? Like, one of my psychologists used to always ask me this one question: how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10? I don't know, pi? Doesn't make any sense. The question doesn't make any sense. So yeah, she used to ask me, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? Which, I mean, that doesn't even make any sense, this question, because concerning what? Emotionally, or like in my opinion about modern physics, or in concerning what? And she never have an answer. So, I mean, what do you mean by 1 to 10. What do you want me to say? I mean, just doesn't make any, concerning my emotions, concerning my psychological state, just on a scale from how do you feel, on a scale from, so that they don't have any answers, they don't even have any questions. And the only thing that heals you if you go to a psychologist is his compassion toward you. If he is really interested and really listening and really absorbing some of that trauma or pain that's inside of you, that has a healing effect. And that reminds me massively of Dianetics from L. Ron Hubbard, and also on the Q-Bark manual, which is an interrogation manual which Hubbard used for his book Dianetics, where they know that if you just listen, have an open ear, and do not judge, just listen, it has a therapeutic effect. That alone has a therapeutic effect. Just listening without judging has a therapeutic effect, and that can be so intense that people begin to crave these auditing sessions. So that's just I want to talk about that. It's like if you put your whole hope on medicine or psychiatry or psychologists, I don't know if you will be successful overcoming your problem. You might be, with time and patience and finding someone who still has compassion with his patients, because many of them just become numb to this bombardment of negative energy. I mean, imagine you would have to do that 8 hours a day, listen to addicts and people who have extreme problems all day long, every day. You just become numb to it. You just don't care anymore. And the most depressed people, I would say, in the world are psychologists. So, but I want to talk about symbols. So, the importance of symbols to change your, let's say, your Innerverse or your world within. The way to do that is by use of symbols. And there's also a saying from Confucius, which goes something like, neither kings nor princes rule this world, but signs and symbols do. And he obviously he knew what he was talking about. So there's a thing called Sigil Magick, where you write out a statement, and it's very powerful if you do that with meditation. You could also use your Kundalini energy to manifest, or your sexual energy to manifest Sigil Magick, and it's very powerful and it's very easy, and the easier the process, the more powerful it is usually. And you write out a statement like, I will become a millionaire by tomorrow. Write out this statement. Then you get rid of all the repeating letters, and then let's say something like this will stay over TORL. So something like this will be left over, and from these letters you make your symbol. You make a symbol, and then it will look something like this. I'm doing it very fast because I'm not very interested in making Sigil Magick anymore. So WLB, A. So you see I have a W, a B, an L, an upside down A. If you look at it upside down, the next would be a T. Let it be like a mirror image on both sides. And O, it's already here in the B. The R you could make like something like this, and the L, which could be already here or here. So you have something like this. Then you usually would make a circle around it to make it into a sigil. So, and now you meditate on it, and the intention that you are putting into that by drawing it, by focusing on it, you can manifest by meditating on this symbol. And by doing that you can manifest your whatever you wrote out. But obviously becoming a millionaire by tomorrow, if you're totally broke, will usually not happen. So you should be a little less specific. But anyway, I don't really want to talk about Sigil Magick and how to manifest it. It's just it's a thing that's real, that works, and many people practice that. So, and I heard a sermon by the Most Reverend Fulton Sheen, and he explained the word symbol is Greek, and it means sym means together, and bol means putting. So putting together. A symbol is something that's put together, and the opposite of a symbol is a diabol, and that's where the word diabolic comes from, and it means torn apart. So why are symbols so important? What is Jesus? If you would reduce it to that, if you would want to reduce it to that, you could say he's a symbol or an archetype of the soul. But he is also a symbol of hope, a symbol of peace, a symbol of redemption, and so on. A symbol of salvation. So why would it be a good idea to read the Bible every day, to concentrate on that symbol? Because you manifest it inside yourself, and that's how you can change yourself. And that's the only way you can change yourself, especially if you're older. There are people who think, like this one guy from Jackass. He wrote a book called Dream Seller, and he was addicted to heroin or something, and so he was completely in the pit, basically. So he was on the needle for years. He lived in in completely destroyed buildings and so, and he did disgusting things to get his drugs and so on. So, and he tried to stop, and the way he tried it is very important to understand. He tried to move away from the city to, I think it was Alaska, Anchorage or something like that. And he really bought a plane ticket and wanted to plan that ahead and so. But when he was there in Anchorage, which is like 1,000 kilometers to the north, he realized that he could not run away from himself because he was bringing himself with him to Anchorage. And immediately when he was there, he found a drug dealer. So this is like magnetism. You cannot get rid of that by moving, by going to a psychologist. At least that's just my opinion. And I had several of them. So you have to change your own mindset. You have to change your Innerverse. And by doing that, you will also change the Outerverse. If you want to invent new language. So, because the world outside is a reflection of your inside world. And there's a famous saying in the occult that goes like this: as above, so below. And that's also why the statue is like this, with the hand down, or whatever, something like that. Which is the saying, as above, so below. And what it means in reality, like Pike said, the profane are not to know the enlightened truths of Illuminism. So the saying, as above, so below, what it really means is as within, so without, or as without, so within. These two things are connected together. So you should not try to change the world outside. You should work on your inside world, and the world outside will change automatically. That's the number one rule in magic. That's the whole principle of all magical systems, is by changing your inner landscape, you change the outside world. And this is not like a little bit, it's 100%. If you invoke a symbol, like say I really did that just now, and I would invoke that with, I don't know, I would be less specific, like I would say I will become a millionaire in the next 20 years or whatever, or in the next 5-10 years, and I would make a huge ceremonial thing out of it and so on. And I would, I don't know, make a blood ritual out of it. So that's all psychodrama. To manifest this, to basically trick your mind that says, what are you doing? You basically trick your mind to say, this is happening now, this has already happened, this is already manifested inside of me. But you have to shut up your intellect by using ceremonial things. That's the basis of magic. What magic is to manifest by letting symbols become a part of yourself. You could even, like, I don't know, you could even worship this symbol or whatever you want to do. You just it has to sink into your subconscious mind, if there is such a thing. That's another Anyway, so that's about symbols and the importance of symbols and the power of symbols, and also like Satan is a symbol. It's just a symbol from our perspective. It's a symbol, and the interpreting of of dreams, for example, you would have to know a lot about symbology. And there is a book which is, I think it's a big book about, or many, there are many books about meanings of dreams and symbols that you see in dreams. Even Crowley had a book about that. I think it's called Kabbalistic Writings or whatever. So, but in my mind, I used half my life to go down the wrong way. So now I'm going to try to go down the right way as good as I can. Maybe I will succeed, and I hope so. But it's all in God's hands. So it's just that, like, there was a word that Adolf Hitler basically invented, Weltanschauungskrieg. And that means something like world view war. And he planned on brainwashing the masses into the world view that he deemed appropriate for the stupid masses, which would have been something like secular humanism, because it's the most stupid worldview there is. And it's even from a philosophical standpoint a stupid worldview. Thank you.